Hey YouTube, been a while since I've done a video for you guys. It's been a full summer this year so far, and it's gone pretty fast. Can't believe it's already July. I hope you guys are enjoying your summer as well. Just got back from a cruise a couple weeks ago up to Alaska. It was absolutely beautiful up there. It reminded me a lot of Wisconsin, actually, in terms of the weather and the scenery. Of course, we don't have the beautiful mountains, the snow-capped mountains, and the ocean and stuff here, but we do have a large lake and a lot of nice countryside here. But Alaska was really beautiful. We stopped in about 3 places, and the boat was nice. It was beautiful weather. It was about 60s up there and about 70s here, so really comparable weather. It was a lot of fun. I needed the time away from work and all those kind of things, just like you guys do too, of course. But I wanted to do a quick follow-up. One of my previous videos was on installing this MGW shifter. Of course, just looking at it, it looks stock because I, of course, used the stock C6 shaft and knob that you can get through MGW, have it fit OEM knobs. I didn't go with a MGW or aftermarket knob. I like that because I like to keep my car as stock looking as possible. It's really not for stealth reasons or anything like that. I don't really care if people know I have mods or not. It's just I like the clean look of OEM and try to keep it that way as much as possible. So anyway, wanted to do a little quick follow-up since I've had the shifter in now for about 2 or 3 months. I haven't driven the car a whole lot this summer, but I have probably put on 300 or 400, 500 miles maybe since I added the MGW. And I wanted to give some impressions. If you remember, the install video is very straightforward. The video that comes with the shifter, it's on YouTube, that George and the folks at MGW put together. Really excellent. It's really foolproof. If you guys have never taken apart your console, don't be intimidated. It's super easy. It's just a couple, if you can turn a screwdriver, you can take your console apart. And it's all done literally step by step, and you can't screw it up if you watch the video. So kudos to those guys for making it really easy. So the install went really good. I ran through the gears in that install video I did, and I could tell, you know, the gates are shorter. It was a little bit stiffer. So I want to touch on three major things that I think will make your upgrade to MGW very pleasant. If you're on the fence about it and you think it might be too stiff, for example, or too tight or too much effort, all of those kind of things you hear about aftermarket shifters. I want to talk about 3 things that'll help all of those things. So first is get the lower box that comes with MGW. Spend the extra money. Don't just get the upper and reuse your lower box. Or if you really want to use a stock OEM lower box in the tunnel, if you want to keep that stock and you don't want to remove that, there's a guy on the forum and on Facebook, I can't remember his name, but I'll try to link it in the description of this video. He rebuilds the stock lower boxes with billet components where the shaft comes in, and I believe he uses Delron pads or washers where the stock box mounts to the torque tube to give a little bit of better vibration reduction. So if you really don't want to use the MGW or spend the extra money on the lower box, the full kit, go through that guy, get your lower box rebuilt. You can buy a new one and then send in your core, or just send yours in and he'll rebuild it. Apparently, and I don't have any direct experience with it, but apparently it makes it feel way better than even when they're new. They're a little bit tighter feeling, there's no vibrations, and it's just a more positive feel. But I can only speak to the MGW, which I love, and I've grown to love even more. So let's talk about the MGW. The first point was to get the lower box. If you're going to get the MGW, in my opinion, just get the lower box. It's designed for the MGW. George specifically did it for his package, so it only makes sense to get it. That's the first step. The second is really, along with the first, is to get the latest generation that you can, or that you can afford. I know some guys like to pick up used ones. I had an older generation one in my C5. It was good, but it was still a little bit too tight and stiff for my liking, even after it broke in. So I would highly recommend getting the latest and greatest. I really don't know how we can improve anymore. I bought this one just a couple months ago over this past winter and put it in. I'm sure he might be able to improve it, but as far as I'm concerned, this is as good as it's going to get. The second tip is on the shaft, on the C6 stock shaft, there's two holes that you can mount your knob to. One's a little lower and one's a little higher, obviously. There's only a difference of about 1/2 inch, but when I first put this MGW in and put the knob back on, I used the lower hole, and I noticed that sometimes going into first or going into fifth, it wasn't hard to find the gear. It was just that it needed a little bit more force than I thought it should have to get into that gear. And I think it was just because the throw and the height of the shifter overall was just a little too short, and obviously the shorter the shaft and the position of the knob, the less leverage you have with your arm and your hand to get it into those gears and in those gates in the shifter and the transmission. So after about 100 miles, I actually raised this knob up to that top hole, and lo and behold, those issues kind of went away pretty much completely. And I've really enjoyed it even more than I thought I could since I did that. The effort is minimal, if you ask me, over OEM. I think it's almost the same. If anything, I would say the OEM is sloppy, like almost everyone else says. And now it's just tight. It doesn't really take any more effort. Watch, I'm going to shift with one finger. That was third to fourth. I mean, this thing does not take any effort. If you follow the video correctly, install it correctly, torque everything down correctly, I'm going to go into fifth, you're not going to have any issues with stiffness. And if you do, then you might reconsider having a performance car, because this is so easy and OEM-like an effort that a lot of guys say the same thing I'm going to say. I don't know why it didn't come that way from the factory. So that's the second thing. Raise that knob up to that second hole on the shaft. The third thing is, and most of you guys know this as well, is to do the anti-venom mod. It's been a mod that's been around for so long, back to the C5, where you basically just put one or two of those copper washers around the detent bolt on the top half of your transmission. There's a bolt that controls kind of the force it takes for you to get your shifter from one gear to another. It's not the centering force or anything that in the shifter itself. That's controlled by MGW and the mechanics and the build of the MGW with the lower box and the centering springs and all those kind of things in the shifter itself. But it's actually the effort it takes to go from first to second, or second to third, or third to fourth. A lot of people talk about, you know, there's a pause in between those gears when you drop a gear or you go up a gear, where you're feeling almost a little bit of resistance when you get into the neutral position before you go into the next gear. I put two of those washers on. At first I thought two might be too much, and I would feel like it's too smooth and didn't take enough effort, but two did the trick for me. I'm still bringing it in. Like I said, there's only a couple hundred miles on the shifter now, and I've heard it keeps getting better as you go along. Honestly, I'm perfectly fine with it the way it is right now after just a couple hundred miles. I think it feels great. I really feel more confident now. I don't think I'll ever miss a shift. I actually did miss a shift with my stock shifter in my C5. Luckily, I wasn't dogging it too hard or too far up in the RPM range. I went from second to third, and I actually caught first. I caught it really quickly and hit the clutch before I, could over rev it or do any damage to the engine. But that was my wake-up call, that the stock shifters really just aren't up to task for performance driving. So those are the three items I would say that if you address with the MGW: the lower box, put the knob on the second hole, the higher hole, and do the anti-venom mod, this shifter will be the last one you ever get. And I'm not affiliated with MGW. I just love his products and the craftsmanship. When you get it and you just see it, all the billet materials, I'm pretty sure you'll feel the same way. But the proof is in the pudding, right? That's what this video is about. I'm in fourth right now. If I go into fifth, a lot of people say it with aftermarket shifters, especially going into fifth, the reverse is hard to find. I got none of those issues with this shifter. Fifth is easy, first is easy. Obviously going first to second and second to third to fourth is kind of the bread and butter of these shifters, but even fifth and dropping down into sixth and getting to reverse in my garage or backing up, I really have nothing bad to say at all. So hopefully you guys find this video helpful. If you have any other questions, you can post them below. I know it's a really subjective thing when it comes to shifters, just like exhausts and the sound of them and drone. I got another whole video on that I've done. But let me know. And let me know your experiences with the MGW or your aftermarket shifters from other companies as well. I'd be happy to hear them. Hope you guys are having a great summer, and thanks for watching.